Recording in progress.
There we go. All right. Turn the camera around that way. So.
How are you? I've been along. Did you get it?
Yes.
Good. Good. Well, you could do that one. Where's the mic?
On the, yeah, it's hooked up.
You're in the headset?
Yes.
Good.
Already, I've just got to turn it on.
Okay.
Get a mic check, everything's lit good. Everybody seeing us on Zoom?
Everybody's got your name tag?
Good angle.
Yes.
Got my name tag. Hi.
Yes.
Morning, everybody on Zoom.
Are you on?
Thank you
Good
for
morning.
joining us this
On.
morning. Looking forward to a great presentation. Thank you, everybody that's coming
Good morning.
this morning.
Thank you, Anton, for being here so sharp. I'm Kathy. This is the Entrepreneur for Christ class. Usually we get started around 8:15. This is good, though. I'm glad people are participating via Zoom. Let's close in prayer. Start in prayer, rather. Open in prayer. How's that? I'm thinking about Carlos right now. We're going to lift him up in prayer as they're traveling, Lord. I just thank you for your tender mercies, Lord. I thank you for each one that can attend here, Lord, and participate as we learn and grow. Our entrepreneur class will grow in your name. I thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see all your beautiful faces here live, and I'm sure you're looking just as beautiful online. Hello to all the people out there online watching us live via Zoom. We'll appreciate your attendance and looking forward to a great presentation today. This is our website. It had been down temporarily because of server migration, but this is the bizforchrist.com domain. This is the website dedicated for the class. So everything that's going to be happening, you guys, with the class, you guys will be able to find it here. Any connections to any social media, we're still kind of building some of that stuff out. You can also access the archive. Who brought a slideshow, presentation, anything like that. There are materials available online to download through our Google Drive. You'll be able to access it from here. Contact information, emails, you can submit contact forms, all that good stuff. Also shows upcoming speakers. So if you went up here to the events, there we go. And you'll see that we've got at least the next 3 presenters there, and then that shuffles forward as the presentations are done. So Biz for Christ, that's BIZ, the number 4, Christ.com is where you'll find that. And we are off to the races. So you guys may have been here when this presentation was originally done about 1.5 years ago. If you weren't, this will be new to you. Great. If you did see it about 1.5 years ago, there have been some changes. So this is called Everything is SEO, which for the uninitiated, SEO means search engine optimization. Okay, that is essentially the collection of techniques that we apply to make a website and any various digital properties that you have rank in a, we say Google search, but technically any search engine. Google's the biggest, they are the most popular. When we talk about SEO, we tend to talk about it in terms of Google, but obviously Bing, any of them. You would rank fairly well there as well. Whatever you're doing to rank well with Google will always have you ranking across the board. So what do we mean by that? You know, what do we mean by everything is SEO? First of all, you know, just to kind of get a visual to it, in addition to some of the words, you know, SEO incorporates a lot of things. It doesn't, you know, it's obviously your website, you know, to start. You know, backlinks. Backlinks is just what it sounds like. You guys know what links are. You know, anytime there's a link that goes from one place to another, that's a backlink. It links back to somewhere. So that's part of it. Keywords, I'm sure you guys have heard about that. You know, targeting keywords. You use those when you're typing in a search. Technically, what you're typing in are keywords or keyword phrases. And site architecture, this has to do with your website, how it's built. You know, these things do matter to the software, the bots that are crawling your website to help it rank. Also helps from a UX perspective, which is user experience. You guys want to make sure that you are not just building it for the bots, but you want to build it for the people, right? It needs to make sense to people that are engaging your digital properties. Content is a biggie, okay? Content is huge. I mean, this is probably the cornerstone next to all the technical stuff when it comes to SEO. You know, blogs, all this multimedia stuff that you can be doing and should, to a degree, is going to help with your SEO. Traffic is what you're trying to essentially get, but not just any traffic. I mean, if you've got 9 million visitors to your website, but you didn't get one conversion out of that, what's the point? You know, when we talk about traffic, we talk about it in terms of overall traffic, but more specifically, the right kind of traffic, you know, the kind that converts. I'd rather have, you know, 1,000 people go to my website and I convert 100% of them than 9 million and I don't convert one. You know, you're going to look at those numbers and say, wow, 9 million versus 1,000. But if I'm getting 1,000 of the, you know, conversions, that means something to me as a business and a business owner. And it should to you. Data analysis is huge when it comes to SEO because you got to look at the data to see what's happening and where you need to pivot and make some improvements over time. Okay, that's not stuff that's going to be intuitive. You really do have to look at your analytics. It's the only way you're going to know what's going on. So that's kind of SEO in general, but let's dive into it a little bit more here, kind of discuss the components, the 3 branches of the SEO tree, the 3 pillars, as I like to call it. They're technical, it's on-site, and it's off-site. Okay, when we talk about technical SEO, we're talking about all the stuff that matters to the software, right? So technical SEO refers to the process of optimizing a website for the crawling and indexing phase. It's designed to help search engines access, crawl, interpret, and index a website without any problems. Now, this is stuff that usually programmers deal with, but there's a lot of software, a lot of third-party tools that would help anybody get a lot of this stuff done. But even in that, there are still some art, some technique, right? One of the things that I could easily point to is a sitemap, right? A sitemap is nothing more than a table of contents for your website. When the bots crawl your website, they go to that table of contents like you would do with a book to see what's going on, where these pages are, and then it will start indexing those pages individually. If you build a website, your sitemap isn't automatically there. You have to generate. Okay, there's third-party tools that will help you do this, so you don't have to like do this raw on your own. But once that is done, that sitemap still needs to be submitted to the search engines. Okay, so that process is not complicated, but those steps need to be taken. Otherwise, it's like it doesn't exist. Okay, so from a technical perspective, you can see that that one thing right there has a lot of value, still needs to be done. Okay, you can have the most beautiful website in the world. You don't have the sitemap generated, you don't have it submitted to the search engines, you're not helping yourself. Okay, you're hurting yourself a lot. On-site SEO. When we're talking about on-site SEO, we are talking about everything you're doing actually on the site. Okay, now this involves making sure the websites, pages, the metadata, the content, overall structure are optimized for your target keywords. Okay, they have to make sense for what you're trying to rank for. Okay, you can't just have some random bit of information just sparse throughout the page and expect that to matter to the search engines. You know, that whole page needs to be designed in a way that it shows the search engines, when you say that when using Google, what that page is really meant to be about. And that's why when we talk about SEO and we talk about on-site and we talk about all these local pages, people are like, what do you mean local pages? Why do you got to do all that? Well, you're a local business. You want to rank for all the localities that you're trying to do business in. You actually should have a separate page for each one of those localities. Why? Because you can't have one service page and say, hey, you know, I'm a plumber and I service North County, South County, El Cajon, La Mesa, San Diego. Like that doesn't work. It's just all muddled up. What you should have is a separate page. Say, I'm a plumber and I service El Cajon. I'm a plumber and I service La Mesa. I'm a plumber and I service San Diego. Okay, that's going to help the search engine bots and that's going to help people. There are things that you can do within those pages that are going to help kind of bring some relevance to that being a region that you're trying to rank for. But it does add depth to your website as well, okay? Offsite, when we're talking about offsite SEO, this incorporates sites that link back to yours. We just mentioned the backlinks. And that's what's really going to help give you authority on a particular subject. You know, one of the main ways that Google tries to identify what you should rank for, why, is how many backlinks are pointing back to your site. Yes, ma'am?
That's how do you create backlinks?
Good question. So backlinks can be done a number of ways. One of the easiest ways that you can create backlinks is by building out directory listings. You know, citation listings. Essentially, if you had a mention on a website of any kind, as long as there is a link from that mention back to you, that's a backlink. Now, those can be done for free. Sometimes they're kind of a pay-to-play model. Google tells you, and I, as a professional, will tell you, you don't want to do that. You don't want to pay to play. You really should be more in an outreach perspective, which means there's a whole effort of communication with the webmaster, with the website owner, saying, hey, here's something, or content, if you're providing the content, there's some reason why you should link back to it, okay? Directories are easy. You can get a Yelp listing really easy. They're free. Claim your Yelp listing, build it out. You get to put your website link in there. That's now a backlink pointing back over to you. So depending on what you do, that can be done. If you don't have a brick and mortar business, clearly that doesn't work the same way for you. You have to go about developing those backlinks a little differently. But all backlinks are not weighted equally, okay? Like a business directory, citation listing, those things have little weight. They matter, but they don't have the same kind of gravitas as if you went to CNN and had some story about you and they backlinked over to you. That's why if you ever notice this, don't know how many of you guys do, but when you're looking at a major news outlet story, you know, they'll mention a business, they'll mention certain things, perfect opportunity for a backlink. It's not there. Why? Because they know the value of their site authority and what that backlink does for you. So they'll just give that away for anything. They do have sponsored positions, which you'll find usually lower on the page. And those are things that people have paid for. But there's a whole process that you have to go through to kind of be vetted to make sure your content is legit, it meets their publication standards, and then that will link back to you. But that is noticeable. Google's software reads all that. So they can tell the difference between a sponsored position and something that's organic. Not saying don't do it, but it also costs a decent chunk of change. You know, you're not going to just pay pennies on the dollar to get a sponsored position on CNN or, you know, MSN.com or something like that. So, you know, bloggers, for example, you know, somebody that has a very popular blog on a particular subject, and there's some synergy there. You know, somebody's got a fitness blog, you know, and you happen to have a gym, you know, there's a way that you can connect with them on a particular vlog, showcasing of a product, something, you know, maybe you're the new owner of a new title gym, you know, you're a new title gym franchisee. Okay, great. There's an opportunity to link up with fitness and health and nutrition bloggers. You research who's available in your area that's even doing those kinds of things. You do the outreach and you say, hey, look, let's get a story. I've got a blog for you. You know, you have some new product, or hey, we've got some new product in our gym. You know, title product. You know, let's find a way to work together. And when you do, they will. Well, you're going to ask them to put that backlink in there, and that is an organic backlink. Now, obviously, there were some things that you did to get to that point. It's a lot of work. It's not just overnight kind of thing, but that's going to be a pretty legitimate backlink. It's not always about the amount of backlinks. You can have less backlinks and they have greater authority, and you'll outrank your competitor. Okay, the quality of the backlink matters, like the source matters. So we call those good and bad neighborhoods in SEO. You want to build backlinks from good neighborhoods. And a bad neighborhood, an example, because in the early days of SEO, people knew this, right? Like they knew that the guy with the most backlinks wins. Well, how do you get those backlinks? Well, you have to go through all this effort. People didn't want to do that. The shortcut was just like, hey, we're going to go just like get backlinks. That's why people will try to insert backlinks into blog comments. You see that all the time. You can put links in there. That's fine. But those are weighted differently, you know, because you can pretty much go to any blog, register usually with that site, go ahead and slip in a blog link of some kind. And they're really spammy a lot of times. You'll see people, if you guys manage websites, you have a website, you'll see this. you see people literally just completely spammed out blog comments. It's like, this has nothing to do with that. Clearly, they're just trying to insert a backlink. Now, you shouldn't do that. It is a legitimate way to build backlinks, but it has to be relevant. You know, you can't just build a Viagra backlink from a website that has nothing to do with that back to a, you know, like that doesn't work. But people do this all the time. Your goal is to try to, like I said, build these relationships that are legitimate, that have relevance, and that you can get it, that have good domain authority. They are coming from good neighborhoods. Like I said, in the early days of SEO, people would literally just buy links and go, like seriously, from a porn website that went back to their website just because they could. And they were totally okay with taking people's money to do this. They were like, sure, you want to put a backlink? We don't care. Pay us whatever, and we'll put the backlink up. But that's something that you can see in a link profile. So you'll be able to kind of identify not just how many links, but where those links are coming from. But domain authority, the source, all that matters. So did that answer your question about that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so when it comes to SEO, I want to kind of bring it down from a really higher echelon of technical and industry talk and kind of just bring it right home to you guys. So who, what, when, where, and how. And when it comes to any business, it should kind of fit, right? So what you do and where you do it affects your SEO. What are we talking about when we say that? Well, what do you do? Do you sell products? Do you provide services? Are you just providing information? Do you provide entertainment? You know, do you create content? You know, what do you do? Now, based on that, your SEO is going to take different forms, right? Now, because your competition pool will affect all your marketing efforts, ultimately your SEO, different SEO techniques are applied when you do different things, okay? A product website that's trying to rank or trying to rank for what they sell, there's going to be a different approach you take with that than if you provide services. If you do not have a restriction based on your region, you know, basically you're like, hey, we do business everywhere, we sell products all around the world, there's a different approach to that. If you are, you know, like, hey, we provide a local service, like you're a plumber or an electrician or something like that, great. Well, there's a way to do your SEO for that service within the region that you're in, because clearly if you're in San Diego and you're a plumber, you are not trying to rank for being a plumber in New York City. That doesn't make any sense. And nor would you. And Google tries to understand these things because they need to deliver search results that are relevant to the user. It's not really about you as the guy who wants to rank. It's about the guy who's looking for something, right? They're trying to deliver the right answer and the right response to somebody's search query. So they need to filter through all that and say, God, there's a lot of plumbers out there. There's a lot of, like, how do I deliver the right search result? Well, based on where that person's looking. You're in San Diego. You clearly want a plumber in San Diego. You don't want a plumber in New York. So there's a way for Google to identify that and deliver those search results appropriately. But you have to build out all your digital properties to make that work. And when it comes to where you, now, obviously I was just talking a little bit about regions, but this goes into more like online versus brick and mortar. You know, do you just do e-commerce? Do you just have a website? Or do you actually have a physical storefront somewhere? Those things matter. Mobile, if you don't, let's say you have like a lunch truck, right? Like you don't have brick and mortar, you're not really online, you're kind of this weird hybrid, you know, but there's a way to do SEO for that. And then, like I mentioned, locality, like where you are geographically located matters. You are going to apply your SEO in that context. You know, you can rank for keywords. So if somebody puts plumber in San Diego, you rank. Or if they are just in San Diego and they are looking for a plumber near me, great. You're going to be a relevant search result based on all the SEO techniques that you apply. And I kind of made this note, you know, just like in real estate, you know, location does matter. Where business is located and where does business will greatly affect your SEO. Now, who you are affects your SEO. What do we mean by that? Your company name and your brand name. Now, that's going to have weight with everything that you do. Let me give you an example. If your business is called, you know, San Diego Plumbers, just the name alone will have some gravitas relative to your SEO, as opposed to saying like Plumbers United or Plumbers Unlimited or something like that, right? Just the name, because you put the locality and the actual service of the business in the name. Now, that's also something that usually carries through to all your digital properties and your domain and that kind of thing. So who you are will help a lot. And I'll give you an example, because you guys don't have, you people think, oh, I got to change my business name. No, you can DBA, right? Anybody who's in here who's a business owner knows you could always DBA. Perfect example, I used to work for an SEO company called, like the actual parent company name is called Atlas Business Services, an LLC. They DBA as a SEO tuners. Now, SEO, it's in the name. Tuners gives you some idea of what they're trying to do, right? Oh, they tune up your SEO, they improve your SEO, they fix your SEO. Right, so there's enough relevance in that name, and none of that is in Atlas Business Services. If you just saw Atlas Business Services, you wouldn't know what they did at all. Clearly you do something, I don't know what you do. They DBA as SEO tuners. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that you would want to do to try to make your name work with what you do and the relevance. So you should always want to rank for your brand name. This is something that people don't think about too much until it's kicking them in the pants. But a perfect example of this is Atlanticus Holdings Corporation. And I put versus Wikipedia because these guys actually were a client of ours when I worked at SEO Tuners. They, when you looked up just, because, you know, take out the whole second part of Atlanticus, just that word alone. When you type that into a Google search, they were not coming up in the top search results. Wikipedia was, and I can actually show this to you, what that looks like a little bit. So this is what it looks like now. I don't have a historical to show you, unfortunately, but when you type in just the word Atlanticus in a Google search, you're going to see a very similar layout here as far as who, you know, where things are ranking. But you see Atlanticus Holding Company, Atlanticus, their LinkedIn page, you know, you see that, you know, Yahoo, you know, that's great. Scroll down just a little bit. Oh, hey, what's that? What's that blue thing? Gee, that looks kind of weird. What is that? Well, if you go down here to Wikipedia, you see Wikipedia is like, you know, 6th or 5th down, you know, it's still on page 1 because Wikipedia is Wikipedia. They're an extremely authoritative domain. So when they put something out there, no matter what it is, they tend to rank towards the top. They're always going to be page 1 pretty much. It's a species of a small blue sea slug. Now, they actually have a few of these websites other than Wikipedia that were ranking in the first, I think, like 7 positions before Atlanticus even came up, even once. So they were like, hey, this isn't any good. People look us up, and the first thing they come across is this blue slug thing, and we don't like that. We're like, okay, fine. So we did a lot of work, and we have now changed that. So now, even years after that campaign, when you look up Atlanticus, just the word, not holding company, just the word Atlanticus, they are now in the top positions, and Wikipedia has been bumped down. That's not easy to do, okay? Wikipedia is a pretty authoritative website. To push them down is not easy.
How did you do it?
A lot of really good SEO. Ultimately, we had to change the narrative online and
Send the data online?
change the narrative. Essentially, most of the content you found online when you typed in that keyword pointed to this sea slug of some kind. We had to put a lot of content out there and make sure it was all, you know, we kind of use this term, SEO'd up the right way, the technical SEO, you know, talking about this holding company, the various facets of it and that kind of thing. And that helped us get, I mean, because if you look at these, like, this isn't their website. This is Crunchbase, this is Bloomberg, you know, I think they're on here, what is this? Yeah, this is Yahoo Finance, you know, yes, one of the top 2 positions, this is their LinkedIn page. And this is their website. Their website actually ranks #1, but you had to get content on these websites. Like, we had to develop those relationships. We had to do some pay to play. We had to build out blogs. We had to do press releases. Yeah, all that stuff together got done there. Okay, it took a while. I think that was a campaign. It was pretty dedicated for about 2 years of doing that, and then that happened. But in the meantime, when you typed in Atlanticus, you got Mr. Sea Slug there. So, and that's a branded, we call it branded keyword search. You know, if you know the name of the company, you're like, oh, I don't know the website. I didn't find, like, okay, let me look up Jersey Mike's, or let me look up Five Guys, or, you know, like, you know the name of the business and you go searching for it, then you should find it right away. If not, there's a problem. Okay, that's like a hallmark of SEO. Okay, if you're doing your SEO right, you're doing all your digital right, if somebody looks up your business name, they should find it pretty quick. Yes, sir.
SEO, right?
Hmm?
Which helps to optimize your website.
Mhm.
Optimization means that it helps. Thank you. Optimization means that it helps the what's it called?
The bot.
user, yeah,
And the
find you and things like that,
Right.
to know where you are, and to know where that company is, or the site is, or the link is, and things like that.
right.
You know, and many people use this mega link. That means what is on your website.
Metadata.
Metadata.
Yeah.
Metadata. You know what I mean? For people to be able to relate to what exactly you do, your company do. If you do fashion, definitely there will be lots of fashion on your metadata, so that
Yes.
it will be easy for the spider to get to be able to find you.
Right.
Now, in that respect, do you relate that metadata to SEO creation? If metadata has anything to do, or
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mentioned that the first part. So metadata is hugely important to SEO. Okay, like when we talk about metadata, they're like, what do you mean? Okay, metadata is like this stuff. You see all this stuff? This is a search engine results page. You typed in something in a search engine, and this is what came up. A result page in a search engine. Okay, we're using Google here. This stuff that you see here, this is metadata. This is the title tag, okay, for that particular page. There's some other things that you see in here that are kicking in because some tools I happen to have in my browser. You wouldn't normally see like a domain authority or that, like that stuff wouldn't be there. But you see this little description here, like this is actually their metadata that's telling you all this. Now, there's other metadata that you can put in. Let's say you're a restaurant, you can do star ratings. So when somebody sees this, they'd also see like you're a 5-star restaurant already. Okay, there's other things that you can do. Metadata gets pretty in depth, but there's only so many things that are relevant for a business, right? Like Atlanticus Holdings Corporation probably doesn't want to put up, their Yelp review, rating or something like that. But if you're a restaurant, you would want to, So there's ways to include that software and that coding in your website, and then when somebody look up something, that metadata would be a part of this. So what Google is trying to do a lot now is try to get as much information displayed in the search results page as possible. So you end up kind of getting the answer to your question just by looking here. They don't mind, fine, click to the website, that's what it's there for. But they're like, hey, if you wanted to know, like I said, you're looking up restaurants, you're like, hey, who's a 5-star Thai restaurant in San Diego? And you're like, okay, Thai restaurants near me, if you happen to be in San Diego, Thai restaurants in San Diego, you're gonna get a bunch of search results, and then you can, if they've done their SEO right, you're gonna potentially see some guys near the top that have got their star ratings in there. You get a quick look and say, oh, that's the restaurant. You're gonna have a side panel over here. Kind of see it again. There we go. Side panel displays like this. Google local displays. Yes, Google has a star rating here, but that's only for Google reviews. You can insert the code to be delivering Yelp star rating. So maybe you've got a 5-star Yelp rating over here. They look at the local, they said, oh, okay, you're like 4 stars on Google, 5 stars on Yelp, 4 stars on Google. That's the Thai restaurant you want to go to, click, or maybe you've already seen the information here. Maybe you can just go for the directions. That's feeding into Google Maps. You can take quick action from just that information. Not everybody needs to go that deep, depending on what they're looking for. So yeah, metadata, hugely important. And this is where you're going to see it really coming into play on the search page. So moving right along. So that was Atlanticus in the Wikipedia example. The other part of who you are and how that really affects things that I wanted to mention was your logo. So it should be something that's aesthetically pleasing, easily recognizable, and makes sense for your business model. This does kind of tip over into the branding side of things a little bit, but it is relevant. Here's an example. This business, and actually I'm going to show you, they actually recently changed their logo because this was too confusing. They've been in business I think close to 10 years, something like that. And this was their logo for that whole time. Now they're out there on the west side of LA, pretty good location. They do a lot of catering for, companies like Apple or Google and stuff like that. So they're well established, but this is their original logo. When you see this, what do you think the name of the business is? OB Suite, right, because you see this O, like that's there, it's pronounced, like it's there. Like you see it and it's in the same calligraphy as everything else. So it looks like it's a letter and meant to be a part of it. Not that at all. The name of the business is just B Suite. Now, when they were approached about that, it's like, hey, you've got this swirl of an O back there. Maybe you should drop that. Or if you said the owner, Barb, Chef Barb, her response was that, they came up with this logo over a lunch meeting, and they like drew it on a napkin, and they were just enamored with it for some reason. Emotional ties to branding, things like this that don't make sense will cause a problem for you. Because literally on a daily basis, they have people come in and they're like, oh, what's the name of your company? OB Suite, BO Suite, whatever. And it just caused confusion. So after years, almost a decade of doing that, they finally switched it up. And now go to their website. Yes, they are doing wonderful things. That's their logo now. B Suite. They've taken all that Chef Barb and the swirl out of there and that. But now, mind you, they've had to rebrand everything. They've got packaging, they've got trucks. It took probably a good six-figure amount to do that. But had they not started off with the wrong branding and the confusion in the first place, they would have avoided that issue. But they got emotionally attached, wrongfully so, and it didn't make sense. Okay, so that's just a real easy example I can show you when it comes to that. So your logo is important. Definitely. I know a lot of business owners want to just kind of get started. You want to get out the gate. You want to get rolling. That's fine, but you have to take these things into consideration. There is a huge downline effect if you aren't starting this stuff off right. What does the word tell us? Proverbs 19:2. Zeal without knowledge is no good. Okay, you're not helping yourself by doing it. You can have all the gusto in the world, but if you aren't taking the right steps, it's only going to hurt you. And it's going to cost more down the line. If they had originally done a different logo, seriously, 6 figures. Okay, 6 figures they would have saved on just the rebranding alone. And you can see that new logo was pretty simple, right? It wasn't even the same calligraphy. They really watered it down. So, it doesn't take much to take the right steps. This is why third-party perspective helps, because sometimes your emotions get way too involved. That's you need another guy, fishbowl perspective, outside looking in. This is what you need to do. Okay, so your URL affects your SEO, your domain. If you guys remember, I mentioned that earlier, your website. Creating a domain name that is as short as possible is key, okay? That's because it's easy to remember, it's easy to spell, and people won't accidentally go to some other website. There's a lot of domain parking that goes on where people just buy up domain names just to have them sit there because they know at some point there's maybe a guy who's gonna want that domain, and now they gotta come to you to buy it. And there's a lot of transactions on a regular basis for domain names. They get pretty expensive. I mean, even a domain name that's available, that's not in somebody's pocket, depending on what it is, let's say you're a real estate agent, realty anything, law anything, medical anything, education anything, finance anything is going to cost a gang of money. I mean, I've seen real estate domain names that were available that were a few $1,000s.
How much?
A few $1,000s. Normally, average domain, a few bucks. So that range is pretty steep, depending on what you're trying to get. So that's why people try to think outside the box. Like, oh, I'm a realtor. Well, that domain costs $3,000. I don't want to spend $3,000 for the domain. Let me just use my name, johndoe.com. Okay, fine, that'll work. But now you're talking about doing more like a self-branding as opposed to just like your real estate agency. So again, all this stuff comes into play. Now, down the road, you may say, hey, now I've got a few $1,000 I can blow on getting the right domain name. Great. How much time has elapsed? How much branding have you developed? How much content have you gone down that's all associated with johndoe.com as opposed to like sandiegorealestate.com? Now you've got to try to feed that back up the other way and develop along that line. That's not as easy of a trick to pull off as it sounds. You can 301 redirect. You can take the SEO juice, as we like to call it, from one domain name to another. But it's a lot easier if you just start out the right way. It's so much easier if you just do it the right way. Yes, sir.
What about tying up domain names relating to your name?
Tying up domain names related to your name. You can do that, but if you're not using them, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can do 3-1 redirects all day long. You know, so if somebody types in that domain name, it goes to yours. But you kind of have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Is it because you don't want to develop those pages? Is it because you're, you know, like your SEO really should be saying, look, I've got my preferred domain name, and I'm going to focus all my effort there. Trying to do a scattershot approach on domain names alone is not necessarily the right approach. If you want to gobble it up and lock it down because you just don't want your competitor to get it, I mean, that's fine, but you got to put that into play. Don't just get it and just park it, like actually put it into play in 3-1 redirect over it. So if somebody's typing, you know, again, SanDiegoPlumbers.com, nobody else had it, but your domain, your actual real domain name is something else like Bob's Plumbing. Great, okay, well, take that SanDiegoPlumbers.com and 3-1 redirect it to Bob's Plumbing.
Related to it?
Yeah, you can do this. It's not that you can't. But when you're talking about playing SEO at that game, like if you're really focused on the technical like that, you should have all that other stuff in check. If not, it's minutia, like really small stuff. You should focus on the bigger things that you can take up with content and UX and that kind of thing. But yes, you can do that. So domain names can indicate what you do, but they don't have to. A lot of people think that like you have to tell people what you do in the domain name, and it gets real long and real crazy. That can work. It really depends on where you are, what you're doing. I'll give you an example. If you were a cafe down in Imperial Beach, you could easily be ibcoffee.com. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, gives people an idea of where you are and what you're doing. That's possible. If you have, you know, if you're doing some other things, you know, that's not always going to work for you. You don't have to do that. People are so, I have to tell people what I do in my domain. Not necessarily. I mean, there's a point at which trying to fit what you do to try to gain some kind of domain authority based off of a keyword being in the domain and branding, like there's a point where that doesn't make sense. You kind of have to optimize that. You have to say, look, this is my business name. Yes, I want domain authority, but based on these permutations that are possible off of who I am and what I do and where I'm located, that doesn't make sense. Chop it, get to the nitty gritty. Sometimes short and sweet is always gonna be better. And again, less confusion, easier to spell. It's gonna get people coming to your domain a lot faster. Yes.
I'm just gonna say, we only have a few more minutes, so.
I'm gonna try to just go through this real quick here, guys. Domain authority of a website describes its relevance for a specific subject area or industry that's written for. Pro tip, using domain name with keyword permutations, it can help a lot with breaking a website, but the age of the domain is also a factor. So how long you've had it just in general is always gonna help. A lot of people doing any kind of work on the web, you've maybe come across these kind of pages before. This means that the website you're trying to go to is lacking an SSL certificate. Your SSL certificate, it affects your SEO, okay? You gotta have that. You know, I've seen plenty of websites that are up and running, blogs, a number of things where they let the SSL drop for some reason. That's bad. You don't wanna do that. You always wanna have the SSL. It's gonna create that little block that you're used to seeing up near the address bar. That's definitely something that you want to keep in play. It takes your HTTP to an HTTPS, okay? Now, that's more technical SEO, but you see, it can cause a problem just for people navigating to your page. Because if you don't have the SSL, this is what they're going to hit.
So you want to have that certificate because it makes it secure? What is that?
Yes, so it validates ownership and security. It's very server related stuff, but ultimately, it also affects just people navigating to the site. Yeah, that's what it means. But this is what you would hit if you were trying to go to a website. Yeah, this is a Google display. It varies per server, but this is what you're going to hit first. Now, to get past this, you can push past that, but you would have to hit advanced, go down, push past it, and go. Now, this is also very good because it will protect you from going to sites that you shouldn't be going to. Okay, there are plenty of bad neighborhoods out there that this will stop you from going to. But again, if you're a legitimate business, getting an SSL certificate should be no problem at all. It costs a few bucks, pay it, keep that thing in place, because if not, you're going to run into issues. Get to the end here. When you're open, this can affect your SEO. your hours of operation. Do you have set hours? Are you by appointment only? Are you open 24/7? This bakes into what we call the NAP, or the name, address, or phone number. This is what it sounds like, kind of directory listing related stuff, Yelp, yellowpages.com, all that stuff. It needs to be consistent across the board. On your website and everywhere else where that information is published, that information should be in sync. You shouldn't be going to Yelp and say, okay, you're open from 8 to 5. I go to your website that says, oh, you're actually open from 10 to 6. There's inconsistency there. Google doesn't like that. They want all that information to be the same. That's pretty much it. So we can kind of fit within our time frame for the class. If you guys do want to get a copy of this presentation, there were a couple of live links in there. You want to click on them and go and explore. Great. It is available for download to our Google Drive. Go to bizforchrist.com. And if you guys wanted to talk to me a little bit more about this stuff outside of the class, you can always go to my website, digital-admen.com. There's a nice way to book an hour-long call with me. No problem. Any time slots are available. You can book. Yes, sir.
Finally, in your own opinion, do you suggest that you pay someone to do your SEO, to do your site engine optimization, or you can do it for yourself over time?
So wait, I can answer that.
Easy answer, right? Like, yeah.
The question was, so everyone can hear, he wanted to know, was it worth it to pay for someone to be SEO optimized?
Look, I'll tell you like this, all SEO professionals are not created equal, just like any other profession, right? You can pay a guy, but is he worth his salt? Usually the less you pay, the more it's going to be obvious that you're not getting the right service. That happens a lot in SEO. People get punch drunk with this, like, oh, I went to an SEO company, I paid them all this money, nothing happened. Right, because they're not doing the work on a substantive level. You can kind of monkey around and get some basic things in there. Like I said, with the NAP, that's really easy to publish that information across the board. But once you get past that really simple wash, rinse, repeat stuff, you gotta have something there. It takes strategy. It takes very skillful techniques to say, hey, a title tag isn't just a title tag. You need to do that right. There are certain guidelines to developing a proper title tag, like length, character length. You want to be thinking about what you're trying to rank for and where you're trying to rank. So these are all things that come into play. And even a guy who knows what a title tag is and how to change it on your website may not be applying the additional knowledge to make the right title tag for you. Now, could I show you where to go to change a title tag on your website? Sure. Are you going to change it appropriately? Probably not, because you don't know about character length. You don't know about so. Should you pay a guy? Yes, because there are advantages to having somebody who knows what they're doing actually taking care of that stuff for you. But it also needs to be the right guy. Am I the right guy? 100%. 100%. Always.
Thank you, Anton. With that, we're gonna have to close because it's 9 o'clock.
Absolutely.
All right, Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this time we can be together, Lord. And just thank you for the information that Anton has shared with us, Lord. I just pray that each one of us just can absorb it and use your wisdom, not our wisdom, to walk further with you, Lord. And I thank you. And next week, Lord, I just pray for travel mercies for anyone traveling. It's a busy time of year, Lord. I pray for our Skyline Church family and that everyone will be safe and healthy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And thank you on Zoom.